Welcome class to Chapter 2, Building a Web Page Template with HTML5. Our objectives for Chapter 2 are continue to manage our website files. We'll look at HTML5 semantic elements and determine which elements we're going to use to structure our web page, ultimately setting up a web page template. We'll look at back at a wireframe, insert comments, add static content, insert some symbols using character entities, describe and use heading elements such as H1 through H6. We'll continue to look at validating our web pages, create a home page from an HTML template, and add unique content to a web page. So introduction, building a website from scratch involves a lot of time and planning. So we want to make sure that we do as much planning as we can prior to actually coding. So back in chapter 1, we went through with our portfolio what we are going to kind of try to get out of this site. So planning some ideas for a website, looking at the purpose of the website, target audience, graphics, color, accessibility, and the timeline, as well as sketching out a wireframe and then looking at what kind of web pages will we be using in our website through our site map. So we're going to continue to work with an example in chapter 2 with the fitness website. So we'll look at how can we organize our website folders. We'll create a template. We'll look at those HTML5 semantic elements. We'll add comments and content, validate, okay, and create and view the home page. So that is our objectives, kind of our applied objectives coming out of chapter 2. So again, planning, we got the website's purpose, the target audience, the wireframe, graphics and colors. What kind of colors are you going to use for your website? And then we'll look at that responsive design as well. And we won't, tackle responsive design in this chapter, but we will as we go through our textbook. So this is just an example with regards to purpose, target, and so on of the fitness website that will be built throughout this chapter. So Forward Fitness Club website plan. So purpose, to promote fitness services and gain new clients. Okay, so they have their mission there. Customers are adults between the ages of 18 and 50 within the local community. So again, the more detailed you can get with that target audience really allows you to tailor your website. Multi-platform display. So again, looking at that responsive design. Wireframe. It's going to consist of 5 web pages in a hierarchical structure. Links to the home page on every page. Each web page is going to include a header, navigation, main, and footer area. The graphics, we're going to do displays fitness equipment and logo to help with local branding, and photos of the facility members and staff. Okay, color, it's going to use black and white, keeping it really clean and simple. Typography, we're going to use a serif font style for paragraphs, lists, and other body content, while providing contrast by using sans serif font for our navigation links and headings. So what does that all mean? Serif means that there's like a little curl at the end of each character that just allows the eyes to continue reading. And so that is an example of that would be Times New Roman. When you see sans serif, that means without that little stroke. And so we'll look more deeply at typography in a later chapter. And then accessibility, of course, we want to make sure that we're doing what we can for accessibility. Sitemap, again, how do the pages relate to each other? So we said already that all pages are going to link back to the home page. That's pretty common. So what is the home page's purpose? The About Us, the Classes, Nutrition, and Contact Us page. So those are those 5, and those are listed here and what their purposes are. Okay, so home page links to the 4 child pages underneath there. What's going to be on the About, Classes, and Nutrition. Here is the wireframe. It depicts the layout of a web page. Now just know that the wireframe that you came up with for your portfolio site might not necessarily be the same as we go through this class. So your wireframe may well change, and know that that's okay. File management, several types of files. So we have our HTML files, we have image files, media such as audio, video, and CSS files. So we're going to set up a main folder, and we'll just call that main folder fitness, and then we're going to put all those other folders underneath that root folder. So just a graphical representation of how we'll organize our site. Okay, so we're going to create this fitness folder, and then within the fitness folder we're going to have our 4 subfolders. So go ahead and make sure you complete the steps there on page 53 that establishes that structure. Next we'll look at HTML5 semantic elements. So semantic meaning that it actually gives kind of meaning to the content that is enclosed within that particular tag. So we have our basic required HTML elements, and they are doc type, HTML head, and body, and we went over those in chapter 1. HTML5 looks at semantic elements, so when we have, it kind of reflects the purpose as it's stated here: header, the navigation, the main content area, and the footer. So here we are with a table. Header indicates the header information on the web page, consists of maybe a business name or a logo. Okay, navigation, that would be the navigation of our page. And our navigation is going to start off really simple, and we're going to get into some responsive menus with some CSS as we continue through the course. Main, start and end of the main content area of a web page. Primary content. Okay, only one main element can appear on a page. Footer would be our footer information. Section is the start and end of a section area of a web page, specific grouping of that content. Article contains content such as forum or blog posts, and then aside, the start and end of an aside area of a web page. Information about nearby content, and is typically displayed as a sidebar. So those are your HTML5 semantic elements. Okay, and here is an example of the code. So creating a web page template. So this is kind of like the same layout that we're going to use for all of our pages. It's going to have the same color scheme, the same typography, and the style of the graphics. So the elements work the same way on each page. So we'll create a file called template.html, and then we'll go ahead and use that as kind of our standard layout when we create new pages. So here is some code for the start of a web page template. And so what I need you to do now is stop and complete the code from pages 57 through 59. So when you're in VS Code, you're going to go ahead and just create a new file, okay? And you can just do a text file. When you save that, save it with a .html file extension. The other way that you can go about doing that is over here in your fitness folder, so file open folder. You can click here and then type in the file name as well, so template.html. Okay, and then you would go ahead and start coding beginning on page 57. Okay, so our basic structure with our 4 semantic elements. Then we'll go ahead and add a title. So the title they want us to use is Forward Fitness Club. So within your head section, you're going to go ahead and type in the title tag. And we're going to look at Forward Fitness Club. Now that's not a bad title. You may want to add in some like keywords that people would search you for, maybe such as a location. That would be a good idea for a very effective web page template, or web page title, I should restate that. So comments can provide additional information about the areas within the web page. So just as other languages use comments, so we can use them here in HTML. So we would simply use the syntax of the less than sign, explanation, 2 dashes, and then we close it out at the end. So again, just a comment. It does not display in our web browser. So our template file now added with some comments. Now you don't have to be as detailed as some of these comments are presented in the book, but whatever information you want to provide that will give meaning, or maybe it's just a note to yourself that you need to come back to that section. Heading elements. Provide a title or heading before a paragraph of text or section of a page. So they usually indicate or emphasize a topic. Maybe a summary is coming after that. They appear larger font size than normal text, and they kind of make it easier for us users to kind of quickly scan the page. Please note that heading elements are also used for search engine optimization purposes. So here's an example of heading 1 and what its default size would be, heading 2, and they get smaller as they go down. Now when you're looking at search engine optimization, you're going to want to make sure you're at least using a heading 1, at least one heading 1 per page. And then heading 2, you may have multiple heading 2s with subtitles, but we'll make sure that we use our SEO keywords, how people want to find us, okay, or how we think they should be able to find us in using those headings. So the example that we'll have in our code is using an H1 tag around the heading Forward Fitness Club. So H1 now added in to our document. So again, make sure that you're trying to use those keywords, and when I talk about the assignments, I will talk about how we can use AI to go ahead and help us build really quality titles as well as header ones, so that we can, have organic search results and be high in those. So a symbol is like a special character, okay, that we would want to use on our web page. So the entity name is the abbreviated name for it, and the entity number is a combination of a pound sign and numeric code. Okay, so here's an example of it using the number, and that is ampersand pound sign 9475. And so that is giving kind of a character that is going to be added in between each one of our navigation elements. So looking at how that symbol renders through a web browser, okay, so that's that vertical line. Okay, so don't be concerned about kind of the simplistic nature of our navigation at this point. I promise you, as we go through the course, we'll be building some really nice navigations. So here are some common symbol entities. So here's the character, what the description is, the entity name, and then the actual entity number. So adding in our navigation using our characters here. So NBSP is just like hitting the space bar. And then again, this is going to be our vertical line, and then NBSP. And just, doing some code formatting, that's all it is. You could have this all on one line, but it's a lot easier to read this way. And then adding in some footer information, again using this time an entity name, okay, instead of the actual number. So when we view this web page now, this is what we have. We have our heading 1, okay, and then our navigation using those symbols in the copyright, and then finally down here our email address that was put in the footer. If you do a Control U in any web browser, you will be able to see your code. Okay, so if we had something maybe invalid in our code, it would definitely show up as here as in red font, but you can see the exact same code here with Control U. Okay, you can also here in Chrome do the check mark here for a line wrap if you needed that, but it's a duplicate of exactly what you see here in the code. And just a reminder, to open this through any web browser is just through the file menu and then going to open, or you can go Control plus the O on your keyboard to do that as well. So the next thing we're going to talk about again is validating our web pages. So this is through validator.w3.org. So coming over here, validator.w3.org, we would go by File, Upload at this point, and then click on Choose File, and then we'll click on that template HTML file to make sure that it's valid, and then click on Check. Now if we had any errors here, it says the character encoding was not declared. And that's because when I was creating the template, I forgot to put in the meta tag. Okay, so meta, and this, if you're looking in your book, and maybe you noticed it as you were going through, it's on page 58. Character set. Okay, so I make my changes here, do a Control S on that, and then we can come back here. I believe, yep, we have to go ahead and choose File again, and then click on Check. Oh, what did I type wrong now? Oh, I forgot my closing bracket there. So you can kind of see how some errors would come through. Again, I'll choose File, check. There we go. That's what we're looking for, is that document checking completed and no errors or warnings to show. So after we've created a template for a website, we can save time by continuing to update that template and continuing to use that to create our web pages. So we definitely want to make sure we have a nice template. And as we continue to learn through the course, we're going to continue to update that template. And we might have to kind of play around with how we would go ahead and do pages. So we'll have to kind of work with that process, as we won't have a perfect template because we are in the learning process. So to save our template as a different HTML file like our home page, we would do a File, Save As, and we would simply just type in here the name of our page. So if it's the About Us page, we would say About Us, but we're going to use index here for our home page. Okay, and so that's typically what a homepage file is named, as index, and it has to do with how web servers point to files, and index is the default. And then we would go ahead and just personalize that page. So you want to definitely keep your template very basic, okay, but then make your pages that you're basing off of that be to that particular page's purpose. So let's finish up the fitness, Forward Fitness's homepage by coding or typing in the content on page 70. Okay, and so here are 3 paragraphs that we added to the index page. So let's go ahead and verify that over here in the web browser. Now you want to be careful that you don't just refresh your template. You want to go ahead and open up that home page so that you can go ahead and see that content and how it is on the page. Now, based on what your screen resolution is, depends on how things will wrap here with regards to the paragraphs. Let's go ahead and validate that home page. So we'll click on index and check, and we're good there. So what did we learn here in chapter 2? We prepared a website by organizing folders for those web page files. We looked at HTML files, structural elements, as well as semantic elements. We looked at validating our template and our home page, and ultimately we created that home page. So let's look at the assignments for chapter 2. So just like with chapter 1, we're going to look at the extend your knowledge. And so let me go ahead and increase this. Okay, so updating a web page with semantic elements. So we're going to need to work with some data files. So I'll make sure and go ahead and post this data file so that you can go ahead and modify these div elements. So Back before semantic, HTML5 semantic elements, we used div elements and we would assign classes to them and so on. And so what you're going to do is go through and change those div elements, those div tags, into appropriate HTML5 semantic elements for this extend your knowledge exercise. And it'll kind of step you through that. And then just like with chapter again 1, we looked at that strike a chord website. And so we're going to go ahead and step through that by creating a folder and through the sample code here as well. Consider this like your practice. Okay, so this is your practice that you will then go ahead and use for your portfolio project. So here is the portfolio project. This is the last assignment, and so you want to again create a root folder. You create any of those subfolders in there. You're going to do a template. You're going to be working with semantic elements and static content. Now when you're developing your AI or developing your title and your heading information, like your headers, your H1 and so on, make sure I'm encouraging you to use AI, something as Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT, to go ahead and help you develop really good solid title content as well as heading content. And come up with your navigation. Make sure you validate that template. Okay, and then ultimately you will go ahead and upload that to the Dropbox. So if you have any questions with regards to Chapter 2, Chapter 2's content, or Chapter 2 assignments, please reach out to me. Thank you.